Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Amit, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm excellent. Good to see you.
Likewise.
Fresh time, right? Brand new time.
Brand new time, actually. Really, this is great. Actually, I can see a couple of people in from the UK as well, which is which is surprising after the emails we got yesterday. So
Yeah.
apologies for the super early start for people who aren't in the UAE or local to Dubai, but. Yeah, we kind of the world just seems to be a little bit busier at the moment, and so we were just getting a lot of messages from people saying that they really like the show, they want to watch it every week, but sort of lunchtime in the UK or 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Dubai was kind of smack bang in the middle of other people doing things. So we thought we'd kind of just change it up a little bit and just do it first thing in the morning so people can kind of watch however much they can and then move on.
Yeah, no, that's right. I got some complaints. I was looking tired as well in the afternoon, so I think this is better. Better that it's morning. We're both refreshed, but yeah, I mean, just as people kind of pop in here, there's a couple of new faces as well. So welcome to the Growth Show, guys. We've been doing this for over a year now. And kind of this is the first dip into an earlier time slot, as you mentioned there. So it seems to be suiting people, though. Got a few new faces coming in there as well. So for those guys, we basically on a weekly dive here. We spend first kind of 10 minutes just running through some news that may be of interest, and then we dive really straight into the kind of topic of the day, right? And this is our kind of exciting success in the summer, right? Success in the summer series, Amit. I think for those of us that are in this part of the world know that the summer's really kicked in because we can't step outside anymore. And obviously, we're not sure from a business perspective how this is going to shape up due to COVID. So super excited about this, Amit.
Yeah, likewise. And I think it's great. I mean, the thing is we've spoken about digital strategy and the importance of building a digital strategy before on the show.
Yeah,
I think the difference is this just evolves so much, right? I mean, the digital space is just so diverse, and just there's so many kind of new things to talk about. So we've got I think quite a interesting and sort of tactical show today. I think which is good. I think this is I think just in general, guys, if this is the first time you are tuning in, we try to eliminate as much fluff, for want of a better term. We really want to focus on actual, how can we kind of help, right? Real kind of key takeaways that people can take with them. A lot of what we speak about is very much based on experience, right? I mean, we've been doing this, both of us, despite our youthful looks. Somewhat, we've been doing this for a long time, right? So close to sort of 20 years for both of us. So I think it's kind of applying as much of that kind of experience. We've got sort of, again, clients around the world, so we kind of know how different industries work, and from a marketing and sales standpoint specifically, we can really kind of try and add some value there. But I think just like Andrew mentioned, we've got the summer series now. Which is, at the moment, it's a 6-part series, which takes us into the middle of August. So we'll be looking at, obviously, building a digital strategy today. And then next week, we move on to sort of lead generation, lead scoring, and qualification. The week after that, we go into sort of CRM and data management. We'll talk about marketing automation and scaling, and then fast tracking sort of sales success. I don't know if, I think many people who maybe listening today see us more as a kind of digital marketing agency, but we're very much focused on digital growth, which means that we do get our hands sort of seemingly dirty when it comes to things like sales and customer service and things like that, just to make sure there's integrated. So we'll be looking at the sales side of it. And then the last piece is about sort of tracking customer happiness, right? How do you drive referrals using automation and using digital strategy? So it's an all-encompassing sort of, I'd say, business-specific series, right? We're not going to be sitting here talking about social media, although we will be talking about things like social and search, wherever it's relevant within these topics, right, Andrew?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, very practical application. I think you hit the nail on the head there, Amit. It's as you said, we're not going to show you how to build out a Facebook page. I think there is a ton of YouTube videos and a whole host of data around that. It's more about how to leverage that space for kind of benefit of you and your organization, right? Wherever wherever you sit within that space, and some of it is going to be, you know, kind of because of the broad range of clients that we have, obviously, in experience. Some can be very entrepreneurial in its nature, and some can be very kind of enterprise and multinational company. So excited about this. But I think kind of before we dive into that, I think we've just got 5 minutes usually just to spend on any kind of interesting things that could potentially have some impact. We look at this more from a trend perspective, just from interest, you know, and see how that impacts. And I thought I wanted something that caught my eye. Firstly, and I'm not sure how popular it is in this part of the world, so I wanted to kind of bounce off you. Amazon subscription, right? So, you know, I'm a huge kind of believer in it. I've got you know, the basics, things like deodorant and not razors, obviously, but you know, other kind of toiletries where I've got them in a subscription, so I don't even think about it. It's in the subscription, comes every month, you know, and goes through, and it sparked my interest because Amazon have now launched a record of the month club. So there's this kind of revival of vinyl, and now they're seeing that, so they're getting people, you know, to start in this, and then I then kind of have decided to, for my birthday coming up, I've requested a Kindle. I had a Nook for many years, but kind of stopped that. So Kindle, and I was looking into that, and there is unlimited subscription services where you can subscribe every month and you get unlimited kind of books. Then also Audible, the subscription where you get unlimited, you know. So I just wondered how you feel about that subscription piece and how it could potentially apply to other business, you know.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the subscription models have just been gaining popularity, especially, I mean, for tech businesses. So much of what a lot of technology companies do is based on obviously trying to generate as much kind of recurring revenue as possible, and things like subscriptions is basically the most obvious way of doing that. And I think, look, if you look at Amazon's kind of valuations, the second they launched Prime is really when things took off, right? Which is again, just a very kind of low touch point. You actually, I mean, what you're essentially buying into is a hypothetical faster delivery service.
Yes.
And the TV add-on, which kind of works in some places better than others. But essentially, that's what drove their valuation up initially. So look, I think you know, Amazon will just keep on thinking of other ways of just delivering products on a more regular basis to its customers, right? You know, so, and there'll be people out there who'll be like all over this, right? So yeah, it's cool. And I think, you know, they you know, the vinyl side of it, there's a cool element to it as well, which I think would always help. So yeah, I kind of get that. I saw just one I saw, mate. I think the Windows 11 launch, or the sort of semi-imminent launch, right? I think it's kind of, you know, it's that you're talking about it yesterday, but this, I think I first caught wind of this a couple of weeks back, and just initially I was like, okay, well, you know, it's the first time, you know, we're launching a new Windows product for a while, right? Yeah. And I've been kind of really interested to see what they were, you know, some of the key features, but I mean, I'm looking at it and it just still looks very, I mean, if anything, if someone said, look, Windows, what's it going to look like? It looks like what it is right now, that you see on kind of Surface apps, but it is still definitely migrating towards the kind of Mac slickness, right? I think it's just, but in terms of new features, I think it's just integrating Teams and those kinds of elements. I can't really see anything too much, but I think that's one just to keep an eye on as well, because Microsoft now is obviously, you know, well, and has been for a long time, is an absolute juggernaut of a company. And I absolutely love the new direction, you know, under the CEO. I think they're a phenomenal business, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they do with Windows now.
Yeah, it's 6 years, 2005 Windows 10. 2015.
Right.
Yeah, which is nuts, really. I mean, obviously, you know, you and I are too young to remember the Windows 95 launch, and obviously, you know, that's the original Windows. It looks interesting. Just one last piece before we kind of head into this summer series. I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on, obviously, a lot of our activity is affecting positively affecting search rankings within a Google environment. And I'm not sure if you caught this, but Google have started to roll out this no reliable sources tag on some of their search engine results. So when somebody kind of, Google something, it says, oh, look, it looks like these results are changing quickly at the moment. And kind of, hey, look, this isn't as reliable. But it made me think this is more driven for kind of news and stuff in the now to spread disinformation. But it made me think about the algorithm change, a year back or whatever, when healthcare providers, for example, there has to be a credible source for their data in order to rank properly. I just wonder, Google really is this data police almost now, right? And that can really affect how a business ranks in Google, right?
Look, 100%. I think there's a couple of things here. So I think the first is, how do you explain to millennials and people who've only ever lived in a Google world that, they shouldn't really trust Google, because their natural instinct, and I've got kids of 12 and 10, right? And the second you ask them something that they don't know, the first place they go to is Google, right? They see Google as the authority. And I think so from that perspective, Google does have a responsibility to make sure that, the information that's on there, is credible, right? And so I think this is, I think from that perspective, it's important. The only other thing is now, and we've spoken about this before, right, in terms of the power that some of these companies have, right? How do you deem one source more credible over the other? And that's the only sort of concerning element with this. So I think you've got to look at it, from both sides, right? You've got the one, they have to do something, but the other part is, well, who determines what's credible and what's not? And I think that's a challenge. But I think, for those of you out there, like I said, we're going to talk tactical, but if your business does have, an opinion on something that's newsworthy and related to your business, publishing some sort of content while that iron is kind of super hot is such a powerful tactic. So, and it's something that we've recommended for clients. It's something that we do ourselves. So it'd be quite interesting to see really the impact of that. So, because in the digital world, that first mover advantage is still there, right? It's still there.
Definitely. Yeah.
So,
definitely.
So I think this one, just keep an eye on that. I think more than anything else, we'll do the same, obviously.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, of course. Cool.
All right,
excellent.
so we've
good stuff.
We've had a few late joiners, so but I think we're good. I think let's carry on and get into the new show. I think the new series. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. So look, everything is kind of around. As you said, we've kind of discussed a lot of these kind of touch points previously, but as you said, the space is ever evolving, and I think the thing is that as much as we've kind of titled this or highlighted this, kind of the importance of creating a kind of digital strategy. I think it's all important to look at those kind of key phrases or those key words there. And the fact is that, in all honesty, because now digital can touch and should touch every single part of your business. It's the entire strategy associated to your kind of go-to-market, right? So it's and what I mean by that, I mean it is technology stack, it is people, it is process, it is marketing, it is sales, it is customer service. All of these elements are crucial to that kind of overarching like business strategy, right? That's what's important. The kind of overarching business strategy that's effectively now there. So as much as we want to look at the kind of sales and marketing strategy piece, we obviously need to look at everything as a whole, right? We need to look at everything as a whole. We just lost Amit there for a brief second, but he's back. So just explaining, Amit, talking about the fact that when we look at sales and marketing strategy, it's not just that, it's looking at everything. It's looking at the entire business strategy and then kind of locking in those digital components associated to the various part of, either kind of client or customer journey, right? That's essentially there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Yeah, and I think you covered. I did hear. I'd say probably most of what you said there. But it's in terms of the, you're right. You covered the marketing and the sales side of it, and making sure it's all of these kind of digital touch points as opposed to just one sort of facet, right? In summary.
Yeah. I mean, look,
Yeah.
I think the thing is that the reason that you have to look at this, overall strategy and lace the digital in there is if you don't, opportunities are going to be missed. Quite frankly. So I think what we see a lot of the time, is strategy is heavily dependent on the individuals that are implementing that strategy or are proposed to implement that strategy. And what I mean by that is that there's sometimes some very short-term view. And look, a lot of that time is budget driven, right? So it's like, hey, listen, I need more clients, I need more customers. Oh, and I need them tomorrow. Yeah.
Right.
So that's I mean, look, and we know that's a challenge, right? If you approach anything with a short-term view, ultimately you're going to fail, right?
Yeah. So again, let's look. Yeah, the reality is very much fair, right? So there's two things that I guess that come in. So
yeah,
the first is that things are very, I think, like what you said, very needs driven as well as budget driven.
Yeah.
And as needs driven is right, we need this today. We've got, it's very difficult because I think the reality is no matter how much long-term planning companies want or feel as if they would want and desire, very few companies have real serious long-term planning. Right. And long term, we're talking about, say, 3 to 5 years. Right. So where is it that we want to be in the next 5 years, and what do we need to put in there? Now, that's, in all your kind of textbooks and all of those things, that's what they talk about. Right. That, this is what you need to do. These are the foundations that you lay and all of those things. But the reality is, and we know this because we deal with this virtually on a daily basis, is people phone us up and say, I need business today. Right. Or I need business tomorrow. What can you do to do it? And I think in some respects, that's probably one of the negatives of digital, right? Because you imagine it.
Yeah.
Let's go back, say, 15 years or 20 years, right? People had to plan a bit more because your newspaper or your magazine deadlines was on the 18th of a month for the following month. And we're only talking about 2 weeks, but even those 2 to 3 weeks, right, used to make a lot of difference in terms of planning. Whereas now what happens is we get a lot of people who just say, hey, we need to launch campaigns and we need to do it in the next 5 days, right? And I think that, but again, I think it's very much kind of needs driven. I think budget to an extent, because again, things like, annual budgets, we saw this last year. Annual budgets were suddenly like, okay, look, we know we've allocated X amount in marketing for 2020, but guess what? COVID's here, and therefore there is now no marketing budget, right? So we I think even those kinds of ups and downs make it very challenging for marketers, especially, because marketing budget is the one that always does seem to fluctuate more than others, right? When we speak to companies, so. I think that those are the kind of realities of where of just business, and I think business right now.
I think that's interesting actually. What you said about time consideration, because previously from a marketing perspective you would have to plan, and I think also from a sales perspective. I mean, I've had countless conversations with my father, to be honest with you, talking about early sales days where you would write a letter to a prospect and sit by your desk and wait for a return, and then it got scary when you had to fax someone and you're waiting for a fax, right? I mean, these are kind of everything evolves, but as you said now, it's instantaneous, right? And I think one of those challenges with the the immediate response of marketing or sales is the fact that people almost sometimes approach it in a simplistic manner, right? So they think that because it's accessible, because it can be quick, it's easy, right? And I think that's also one of the kind of missteps, right, when it comes to that kind of strategic piece. But I mean, look, I think just because obviously there are organizations and individuals that have a short-term strategy, I mean, there are options, right, in that space. There are opportunities that can present themselves from a short-term strategy, and I think that where I've spent quite a bit of time with clients, and I know you have as well, that short-term strategy almost becomes phase one, right, of the approach. So it's kind of phase one to kind of, you know, activate certain things. But meanwhile, in phase two and phase three, we can work on a longer term strategy. And I feel like that's easier to digest, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, and also look, you need, I think again, let's talk kind of Middle East specific. I think the short-term wins are so important. Okay.
Yes.
And it's not just important, say, from a service provider, but it's important for internal stakeholders, right? Okay, you want more budget, you want to have a, you know, long-term strategy. Show me if this works first, right?
Yeah,
and this show me this works first mentality, I think it's a very justifiable business approach, right? Yeah. You know, why invest time and money into something if you're not sure of the results, or you don't have any kind of indication of whether this is going to be successful or not? And so, you know, so I'm not against the short-termism at all. I think actually it's quite valuable in some cases. You know, and in other cases, again, when we've been forced to, you know, put a short-term sort of strategy in play, it's quite interesting now that we can turn those around very quickly, because we understand, okay, look, where are the quick wins for this potential client now? And I think this is where, if you're an internal marketer, this is now really where it's kind of, an in-house marketer, this is really now, you know, it's laying those kinds of different foundations in place, irrespective of whether they're perhaps the right approach or not. But I think just on that topic, I think let's kind of look at it then, Andrew. I think the direction that we're talking about is quite good. I quite like it. I think if we look at this kind of short-term thing, right? Let's start there. So if a client comes up to you today and says, "Hey, Andrew, look, I need to launch a new product, or I've got you know, my leads are drying up, whether it's B2B, B2C. Well, what can I do? What can I launch in the next week, and what's going to be effective for me?" Right. So I think would it make sense to start looking at a funnel at this stage?
Yeah. I mean, I think that makes sense. I mean, I think, look, in all honesty, even if it is, I need something tomorrow or I need something in 6 months, the desire or outcome is always the same, right? So even if it's brand building, brand elevation, it ultimately leads to conversion, right? More business, more sales, etc. I think even if it's a short-term strategy and I need immediate results, in all honesty, you know, I think we treat the conversation the same, in the sense that we have to almost take a breath and see where we are now, right? And I liken it to a restaurant opening, right? You know, you can kind of big fan of analogies, people that know me and know the show, right? But basically, you know, you can do a phenomenal kind of marketing. You can open a restaurant, but if you haven't got any food, you know, or you've mismarketed, you know, hey, listen, it's best Chinese restaurant in town, and you open it up and it's all, you know, salads, right? You know, there's going to be a mismatch. So I think even we want to kind of, you know, and it doesn't have to be a long process, but it has to be, you know, some foundational elements associated to, you know, what's your current landscape, right? So almost like a bit of a for want of a better word, like a bit of a mini audit, right? And you need to understand where you are currently, so to effectively say, well, okay, you know, let's say, you know, we want to launch, you know, quick wins usually are driven by Google search, because obviously ultimately people are looking for products and services. Let's run some campaigns in a Google environment, right, to get some traffic. But if you haven't got a landing page, if you haven't got any content, you haven't got any creative, you haven't got this, you haven't got that, you know, it's impossible to do that. So before we even make suggestions on how to approach a quick win, we need to understand, you know, where we are, right? And not only where we are, but a crucial piece is how much control we have over where we are, right? So by that, I mean, you know, we may have a phenomenal site, right? Wow, this website's incredible, right? You know, but what I want to do is I want to tweak this and add this, add it. Well, I can't do that, right? It's out of my control. Or it's going to take 3 months to make those changes. So what can we do, right? And, you know, there's a couple of clients at the moment, you know, globally recognized brands that we're currently going through this process, right? Trying to identify those opportunities, right? So I think we need to understand, and that's really, we break this down effectively in 3 areas, right? So first and foremost, it is the web piece. So, you know, what does the, you know, kind of current website landscape look like? Is it, you know, for example, we get a lot here. I want to go after, you know, the Saudi market. Okay, great. And I want to run, you know, in Arabic. Perfect. Do you have anyone that can pick up the phone and speak Arabic? No. Great. Do you have anyone that can read Arabic? No. So, it's kind of like, it's not only looking at the kind of digital component, but it's also back to that point of strategy with the internal kind of personnel, right? Get excited about doing something. So if we start with the digital fundamentals, I think from a web perspective, it is looking at, do I have a kind of a website that can work, wherever I want to promote my products and services? Do I have the ability to create dedicated or landing pages for particular campaigns? If I don't, do I have the option to kind of make change, or do I have the ability to create something temporary? So not directly linked to your brand, but obviously something that can be temporarily created as a stopgap, right? From a web perspective. And obviously then looking at the kind of, in some clients' cases, is looking at social. So understanding the social landscape, right? So at the moment, if I'm driving social campaigns and my social is massively inactive, there's a mismatch there, right? So I'm driving someone through social media to my social pages, and the last time that I post something was 6 months ago. Yeah, there's a disconnect. So in the kind of prospect's mind, there's going to be a disconnect, and all of this also feeds back into like a bit of a mini content audit. Yeah. So understanding from a content perspective what content you have to share, what be it video, audio, text, whatever the case may be. Now, all of these three lace into what you mentioned, which is effectively the funnel. Right. So, what we're looking at from a quick win perspective is our focus is very much on top of funnel and bottom of funnel, right? So running those campaigns, trying to drop in the top, and immediately getting those results.
From a mentality perspective, is that what you're saying? So
exactly.
That's how we think, right?
Exactly, right? Because the short-term approach is, hey, and it's a very almost fantasy-driven environment. Hey, listen, I mean, we're old enough to remember this, but the Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner, like if you build it, they will come, right? And we see it a lot. Like I've just launched. Why is the till not ringing? Why are the orders not flying out the door, etc., right? So there's almost an inbuilt mentality that, hey, listen, I'm going to launch something, and these things are just going to be flooding through the door, right? It's not like that. Where from a digital perspective, where you're pushing your message, be it across YouTube or Google or Facebook or TikTok or whatever, it's a very noisy space, right? So not only you're being bombarded with that information as a potential prospect by other brands, by other organizations. It's a very noisy space, right? And I think sometimes clients forget that.
Yeah, let me add something in there, and let me just ask a couple of questions, I think, based on that. So look, guys, look, well, just before I do that, we've got the chat function open and the Q&A. So if you do have any questions, just shoot them through, and we'll keep an eye on that as those as they come in. But essentially, Andrew, look, when we're looking at I think the mentality piece is spot on, because that does happen, right? So people think, right, I need something tomorrow, let me run some campaigns and that will happen. And actually, look, in reality, sometimes it does, right? You can switch campaigns on, you start getting leads within a couple of days, and bang, right, everything's good again. I find it really interesting though, because I feel what happens at that point is you're almost looking. I mean, timing is everything, right? I think when anyone is making a purchasing decision, and if you start to run campaigns trying to target those people who are trying to make a purchasing decision at that very same moment, this is all about timing. And sometimes that funnel, from top of funnel all the way down to bottom, where somebody kind of does become a customer, some of that does become fast tracked, right? If you get that timing right. But the challenge is sometimes people aren't looking, right? And that purchasing decision is something that is slightly elongated, right? It's not a simple, okay, I'm looking to buy something on Amazon, therefore I'm ready to make a purchase. And if I see an ad for it, I'm just going to click through 2-3 clicks and I've made a purchase, right? But if we look at it from maybe even from a B2B specific environment, that's quite different, because I think the purchasing behaviors are slightly different. I think so I said I was going to ask a question, I haven't, I've just spoken. But the question I'd say, or the question I would ask then on the back of that is what if you're in a business where people don't make those purchasing decisions straight away, right? So you can't fast track them through the funnel. is it still a case of, okay, we just follow the same approach, or I don't know, how do we look at, do we just focus on the bottom of the funnel, for example, or what? I don't know. Like, I mean, if I'm a client, if we came in and said, look, Andrew, I've got a B2B business, my purchasing cycle is typically 3 months, but I really need to, kind of fast track that and make some sales in the next 6 weeks. How can you help?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good question. I mean, look, I think also we have those scenarios, right? We have the scenarios in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months in that process. I think there's a couple of elements here. So I think first and foremost, we would look inward, right? To understand, is there any kind of current clients that have an opportunity for upsell possibly, that haven't been spoken to for a large period of time, and it happens, right? You kind of bring clients on board, they kind of pay their clients for many years, but you don't ever, as your business grows and evolves, a lot of the time those clients are not neglected from a customer service perspective, but possibly neglected to understanding how you've evolved as a business. So I remember a few years ago, we were working with the guys at ReadyMix in Saudi Arabia, and they were very frustrated that one of their largest clients didn't give them the particular contract for the metro. And they said, well, you don't do that, right? You don't do this particular cement spray. And they're like, yeah, we do. Well, we didn't know, right? So I think first and foremost, always look in your own back garden as far as trying to understand, is there any opportunity with the existing client base that we can leverage them, right? So again, they know you've been working with them, so maybe looking at opportunities there. That's first and foremost. Secondly, it's looking at current prospects that you have in your bucket, right? So prospects that you're currently talking to, and having conversations with, and these may go back that 6, 12 months, time to re-engage with them. So if you don't have a correct re-engagement process in place, this is an opportunity to reach out and have conversations with these individuals. I mean, from a B2C perspective, this is what we've done previously with like dental clinics, medical clinics, where they have those people that perhaps had their teeth cleaning or whatever, 2 years ago, and they haven't spoken to them since. So, reaching out to kind of prospects and opportunities in that sense. And then lastly, it's really about trying to kind of, depending on the industry. So this is, depending on industry dependent, I guess, right? On this, but it's really kind of looking at opportunities that other competitors may not have serviced the particular client correctly, and they may be partway through projects. So I think this is where it's very much an outbound activity. Okay. So instead of, relying on people coming to you because you have a sense of urgency, this is where you kind of, mix a bit of old school and new school, and you do that outbound strategy. So outbound strategy in the sense, identifying the individuals that you want to have a conversation with, or the organization, the targeted accounts, and then reach out them through various means. That may be targeting them on, for example, like a LinkedIn platform that allows us to target by industry, company, size, etc. It may be targeting them through an email campaign, or alternatively, it can be simple as picking up the phone and having a conversation, right? Because I think that's the crucial piece here. The quick wins in that longer cycle sales is all about opening up a conversation. Yeah. So effectively with this, you may be able to close something rather quickly, but essentially you've started a conversation with person X, and that person may then turn into a prospect, right? But until you outbound, until you reach out to those individuals, you're not going to know if there's an opportunity there or not, right?